Good morning, my surgical assistant friends. Today we're going to be going over the item development presentation, which are our rules and guidelines for creating solid multiple choice questions. And then we're going to review the online item writing system, or the test development center, as we like to call it, which is where you will go online to input all the items you'll be writing. As always, if you have any questions or concerns throughout this process, please feel free to reach out to me. My name is Rachel Rougeau-Newton. I am the Senior Assessment Developer here at SMT. I believe everyone has my email. If not, you can contact David, and he knows how to get a hold of me. So we're going to get started, so don't waste any more of your time. Monitor. So the purpose of an examination is to enable qualified candidates to demonstrate competency while precluding unqualified candidates from achieving the distinction. What that means in plain speak is we have an examination so that people who are safe and competent in practice are able to be certified, and we say they're good to practice, and people who are not safe or not qualified are precluded or eliminating from receiving that distinction. So the people who know their stuff pass, people who don't know their stuff fail. We want our items that we develop to mirror that same goal. We want the candidates who know their stuff, who are competent candidates, to get questions correct. It makes sense, right? And then we want candidates who don't know their stuff to get questions wrong. So that's why we have a lot of these rules and guidelines and tips and tricks, is to make sure that our items aren't tricky, so that candidates who know their stuff are able to answer correctly and they're not getting it wrong, and candidates who don't know their stuff aren't able to use a test-taking strategy or tip to figure out the correct answer. Everyone will be getting access to our online item writing system, and while this bank is just for items that are in phases of development, no live items are stored in this location, we still want to treat it with the utmost concerns to security. Doing so, please keep your login information and password secure. Don't write the link to the bank, your password, and your login all on one sticky note and leave it on your desktop. You're going to be requested to change your password the first time you log in. The system does not have any restrictions on what you can use as a password. We just ask that you make it something you'll remember, but something no one else would be able to guess. Once you change your password, I will not have access to it. So I would have to reset it all over again and give you a randomly generated one should you forget your password. We always ask that you access the Test Development Center from a secure location with a trusted connection. Home or work is obviously fine. I always say don't go to Starbucks and write your items, no matter how cool you look doing it. Always log out and close your browser when leaving your computer unattended or ending a session. The system will time you out after a period of inactivity, but it doesn't automatically refresh the screen. So if you have an item on your screen, it will stay on your screen until you ask it to do something, and then it will bring you back to the home screen. And of course, never discuss any item or exam content with anyone outside of the SMT test development staff. That's your truly, again, my name is Rachel, or your SME development committee. Moving on to some terminology we use a lot through our presentation and test development work. So SME, that's you all, your subject matter experts. You are individuals who exhibit a highest level of knowledge, skill, or ability related to the specific topic or practice. So in this case, our surgical assistants. The item is the whole shebang, the STEM and the related options. What you're going to be creating. The STEM is what we call the portion of the item that presents the stimulus to which the candidate must respond. Our options are our responses. You will have 4, A, B, C, and D. The key is the correct option, or the answer. And the distractors are the incorrect options. They distract from that key. So here's an example. What is the name of Quint's boat in the movie Jaws? So there's our STEM. These are our options. D is our key. And our distractors are A, B, and C. Our are 3 major rules for item development. Our items must be linked to the content outline, and everyone will have a copy of the detailed content outline of the CSA examination. So a job analysis took place. We worked on knowledge, skill, ability statements. What does the CSA need to know went into this document. And then there was a survey, people responded to it, and we came out with this outline for test construction. So items must be able to link to that outline. Items must be true in theory and practice. And what that means is what the reference says is the correct procedure, the correct way to do things, is what you would do in practice as an expert. So for an example, let's say someone's reference material says that you're going to disinfect your tray and you're going to move or wipe from left to right. But you could go from right to left and still be safe and efficient, and everything could still be cleaned effectively without having to move from left to right. So we wouldn't want to write an item like that, because what you do in practice as an expert should match that theoretical world of what is saying is should be done in by the reference. Finally, our items must be supported by a valid reference. First, every single item submitted needs a reference. There's a place for a reference in the online item writing system for you to input them. And what support means is someone who reads the reference, understands it, can apply it to practice, would be able to figure out or answer your question or item. I don't want any copy and pasting a chunk of text from a reference and using that as the stem of the item. It's plagiarism. We can get in a lot of trouble for it. It encourages verbatim regurgitation of like your memorization from candidates. And if a candidate has your reference, that same reference material, you copy out of the reference to create your item, essentially the candidate has now the item, and you're reverse breaching your item content. So always use your own words. Think about applying that knowledge in the reference to practice. Our format, there's direct or completion. So either is fine, however, it just happens to magically flow from your brain. There are no rules saying one is better than the other, but these are our 2 formats. And you notice in direct, it ends in a question mark, and your options start again as new sentences. And in the completion, your options complete the end of that step. So these are the no good, the just bad, and the plain old ugly, the awful formats that we want to avoid. So first, the no good are fill in the blanks. So we do not use any fill in the blank style items. There's an example given there. We also don't use true or false, because then you'll only have 2 options and we need 4. And if anyone's curious, yes, there is a town that's called Mayo, Florida, and they did change their name to Miracle Whip because Florida. Finally, the plain old ugly are negative stems. So those are items that are written using except or not. So all of the following are true except, or which of the following is not. So the example given here, which of the following champagne houses is not located in France? I'm sure the answer would be Corbel or something like that. But the reason we don't use negatively stated items is because candidates are under a large amount of mental stress while sitting for an examination. Kind of not a shocking concept, I can imagine, but when a candidate is under all of that mental stress, they're being told to go through the exam and they have to pick a right answer, pick a right answer, pick a right answer, and then this item comes up with an accept. And they have to pick a wrong answer. And they kind of backpedal their thinking. And while they may not be aware of it, that backpedaling really compounds the level of stress, mental stress the candidate is under. So we see a lot of candidates who are doing well on an exam will miss these questions. And it's not because they don't have the knowledge, it's because they didn't read the not. Their brains didn't pick up on it. They didn't read the accept. They fell into the pattern of picking the right answer, picking the right answer, and picking the right answer. And I've seen it happen in workshops before, working with veteran item writers from various disciplines that an item that will be phrased negatively shows up on the screen and my subject matter experts get it wrong. And then everyone laughs and we have a good time about like, oh, I didn't read it right. It was an accept question or not question. And if it happens to my experts, such as yourselves, in a relaxed workshop setting, it's only fair to think that it happens to candidates in a stressful testing environment. And we are not out to disadvantage any competent candidates or trick any candidates. It's not a reading test. We don't want them to do more mental gymnastics than they already have to do in their everyday lives. So please, please, please avoid negatively stated questions. And that's the end of my rant on that one. Moving on to the plan of attack. So what are we going to use to build these items? We really want to focus on concepts that are relevant to competent practice. I always joke and say no bar trivia. No trivia about what would be nice to know or what they may know. It's what they need to know to be competent to practice or to demonstrate competency in practice. So again, an aim towards those practice-based questions. Avoid definitions or recognition of acronyms or anything like that. Items should be appropriate for the target candidate, and we want to keep in mind their education and experience levels. So this is not an advanced level examination. So the certified surgical assistant. We also want to write to the level of the minimally competent candidate. We do not write to the all-star level, and we do not write to the people who are struggling to throw them a gimme. We have to write to that level of the minimally competent candidate. And I know no one likes to think of their colleagues or their candidate populations as minimally competent, sort of a testing term, but we have to write to that, again, that middle of the road person. And the way I like to frame my brain around it is to try and think of someone that you may work with, a colleague, another surgical assistant, and there's someone that you would recommend to take your place should you have to go on vacation or you have to leave. You would recommend them, but they would be the last person you would recommend. They can do their job safely and efficiently, but they're not your all-star. They're not someone on your level. They're, again, minimally competent. And finally, every concept of an item should be important and worth including on the examination. We have a limited amount of items on the exam that we use to determine competency. So make sure every item is pulling its weight. It's important to ask. Our strategy for developing these items. We want our stems to present a single problem to a candidate. So what is the diagnosis and what is the first step in treatment are two different questions, two different items. We want to be as clear and concise as possible. Again, it's not a reading test. The candidate shouldn't have to go through and do a lot of extra work to figure out what's being asked on them. On the flip side of that coin, we need to provide them all the necessary information in the stems. We don't want anything vague. We don't want the candidate to have to make assumptions or guesses. They should have to make logical conclusions when doing like an application level question, but they shouldn't have to guess or assume. All items should be free of style errors like teaching statements and vague stems, which we'll see an example of. And we want to remain free of creating any potential bias. And we do that by always using titles instead of names. So the physician, the surgical assistant, the patient. Refrain from mentioning sex, age, religion, all that good and juicy stuff, unless it's absolutely imperative to the understanding of the item content. We also do not use you when formulating our stems. So, no, you are a surgical assistant, you have this issue, what should you do? Because the candidate can internalize it and then argue any option is correct because you're asking them what they would do. And I would run screaming, and I know that's not the competent answer. So teaching statements, the style error here, we have the pieces on a chessboard are the king, queen, bishops, knights, rooks, and pawns. Which chess piece was originally called the elephant. That whole first sentence is teaching. It's extra knowledge that's not needed to answer the stem. It takes up the candidate's time. It could help teach information further on in the exam. To take it out, it's a much cleaner item. Which chess piece was originally called the elephant? Vague STEM, we have here Walt Disney was. If you cover up all of those options, Walt Disney was, anything in the world could follow that. So the candidate is now having to spend extra energy, extra mental gymnastics, as I like to say, on reading through all of these items and figuring out what is being asked of them. So we fix that. Now, Walt Disney was born in what city? If you know that, you should be able to go quickly to your answer and move on. Moving to our options. These are, again, our responses. Our options must be parallel. And what we mean by parallel isn't necessarily they have to be the same length. We really want to focus that they have the same level of complexity, the same type of idea, that they really fit together and work together as a comprehensive set of options. We want to make sure our key is clear and unique. So no trick questions, no tricky keys, and we don't want any keys that look very, very similar to another option. So a whole sentence where one distractor has an and the key has instead an or is very tricky for candidates who are under a lot of stress and may just happen to read over that or. We want to avoid the use of always or never when formulating our distractors. All of those qualifiers like all, only, always, never are really flashbulbs to candidates who take test prep courses, that those are not the answers, and then they'll just cross those right off. Our distractors should always be real and plausible and attractive but not tricky. Think of common mistakes that you've seen, common misconceptions when formulating your distractors. If you use numeric options, they should always be in ascending or descending order with no overlap. And we do not use all of the above, none of the above, and combination options as choices. So parallel options. We have here an example of which of the following best describes cross-checking in hockey. And we can see that there's not as much detail in A, C, and D as there is in B. So B automatically looks the most attractive just because it's the biggest. We're Americans, right? We always want the biggest. We want the biggest cheeseburgers, we want the biggest cars, the biggest options in our items. It also uses sort of most of the hockey sort of terms. We're talking about the stick, we're talking about checking again that's in the stem. So if you have an item about anatomy and one is a clear anatomical term and the others are not, you don't really have to know anything about it to pick up on it. So again, we're going to use that same level of detail throughout. Another issue with parallel options are subsets. Subsets are when one option is sort of included in another option. And what we find are that candidates who are higher performers, who know more, are more tripped up by these items than candidates who are performing a little bit lower. So the example given here is that we have a zombie apocalypse is happening, so how do you prepare for it? And we have delegating roles and responsibilities, identifying a means of egress, performing risk assessments, and creating an emergency response plan. The problem with this item is that delegation, identifying your means of egress, and performing risk assessments are all part of your emergency response plan. So a highly competent candidate who knows the details about emergency response plans would be really confused here and wouldn't know what was being asked of them. So make sure all of your options are unique and stand alone and are not part of another concept or part of another option. So I always recommend that writing your items down, just getting a concept out there, and then go back and reviewing for all of these issues. No one's ever written an item perfect straight off the bat that I've ever worked with. It always kind of has to go through phases of editing, and that's why we have review webinars and all that good stuff. And I know it can get really scary when you're sitting down to write an item and you can hear my squeaky voice saying all of these rules and guidelines can kind of be intimidating. So just get it out on paper and then go back and edit with all the rules in mind. Some additional rules or some additional things you want to look for are cluing, which we'll see an example of, always correct keys, any humorous or obvious distractors, any excess information that's not needed to answer the item, any slang or colloquial terms, any brand names we want to try and avoid unless it's a medication, and then we could do the brand name with the generic. For things like certain clamps and all that, they have brand names for, just try to describe it. The example I always use is, we can't say Kleenex to say facial tissue. People will try and understand, even though Kleenex is a well-recognized term, we can't use that brand name. And of course, incorrect spelling or grammar is the last one there. So cluing. Cluing is when key terms are repeated in the stem and in the answer. So this is the #1 thing that candidates who take test prep courses are told to look for when they don't know an answer, is to look for key terms that are repeated. So the example given here, what does Josh wish for in the movie Big? Should be no surprise that it's to be big. Those key terms are repeated. So sometimes we know we get into a spot where you can't avoid repeating those key terms. So use them multiple times. So the way we fix this one is, what does Josh wish for in the movie Big? We have a big league ball player, big shot Hollywood actor, to have a big brother to play with, or to be big enough to ride a carnival ride. It really helps bury that key. Now, someone who has the knowledge of the movie would be able to answer it, and someone who doesn't would have trouble. So always correct keys are keys that are always correct. My gosh, mind-blowing. But they're correct no matter what the stem is. The example given here is a Facebook or friend-face notification. How should the practitioner proceed? And the key here is referring to company policy. Asking for support, asking for supervision, referring to company policy. Checking yourself before you're wrecking yourself is never a wrong answer. It doesn't matter what the stem is, it doesn't matter what the scenario is, it's never a wrong answer. So we want to avoid these types of items. They tend to test at like a 99%. They do not discriminate between the two candidate populations of the competent and the not so competent. So the way to kind of work around this is to get more specific. So for this one, for example, the way I would fix it would be to refer to what? Computer use policy, refer to the ethics policy, maybe something along that line to know exactly where they need to go to find this information. So finally, a bit about Bloom's taxonomy. Considering that this multiple choice format is being used to measure competency, we really need to use a broad range of cognitive domains when developing our items. There are 3 that are available to us, so I know 3 doesn't sound very broad, but these are the 3 that we can use. And the first one is knowledge. Recall. It's the most basic, and just because it's the most basic doesn't mean it's bad, but we still want to use these sparingly, because these are kind of the bottom rung. There's still concepts that can really only be addressed by knowledge type questions, but we still don't want to have a ton of them on the exam. The example given here, which of the following animals is an amphibian, which is a salamander, in case you didn't know. But yeah, there's no application going on here. Kids don't have to think extra hard. It's a, they know it or they don't. Not saying that it's easy. If you don't have this knowledge, it's not easy, but it's just a you know it or you don't type item. Moving on to application. This is where things get really fun. This is my gold star type items. These are the items I'd love to see. These are practice-based questions that we really want to use to build up the examination. So now we're asking, can the candidate take previously learned knowledge and apply it to solving a situation or an error that arrives? So the example given here is that an actor is sitting for a wound prosthetic. They begin experiencing shortness of breath. What should the makeup artist do? The answer given here is to remove it and call emergency services, because the actor is having an allergic reaction to the liquid latex that's being used to apply the prosthetic. So we haven't said anything in this stem about allergic reaction, because what is the correct response when someone is having an allergic reaction, the answer being call 911, is a knowledge level question. So what makes this more of the application is the candidate has to recognize that these symptoms are symptoms of an allergic reaction, go in their brain, I know that's an allergic reaction, and then make the correct call from there. So if we think about a subway map, our knowledge questions are one spot, one little pinpoint, one station on that map. And our application is a line. So point A to point B is that application. They're having to make that logical jump, that logical conclusion. Finally, we have critical thinking. So going back to our map analogy where knowledge is one point, our application is A to B, our critical thinking is more A to B to C, back to D, it's maybe the whole map. What separates the critical thinking level questions from the application questions is there are multiple pieces at work here that the candidate has to evaluate. The example given here is kind of a lower level, but still a critical thinking level question. We have a catering company is designing a menu for a charity auction at a park for children's celiac disease charity. And then they're given menu options to choose what is the most important. So we know, okay, this is celiac, this probably should be gluten-free, it's in a park, it has to hand up in the heat, it's for children, so it has to be children-friendly. All of these things are kind of working to get to the correct answer here. So while a Merlot glazed pork medallion sounds delicious, probably not the most kid-friendly option. If this was a benefit at a art museum for the adults, yes, maybe that one would be more appropriate than another one because it could also be gluten-free. So that's how critical thinking level questions work. You can notice it here that it's not ridiculously long. A critical level thinking question doesn't have to be a case study, but it's just multiple pieces at work to arrive at the correct answer. Finally, consider the following as you draft your items. Again, we really want our items or content to be relevant to practice. Again, accurate in both theory and practice. So again, that means what the reference says and what you would do as an expert match. Items should be supported by current professional literature and research, and put your references into the test development center. Ask yourself if you feel the item is important and worth testing on the examination, and is it appropriate for the target candidate. And that's all for there. And there are our numbers if you need to get a hold of us. It's easier to reach me by email, but if you want, there's the number for SMT. Our next section that we're going to go over is for the Test Development Center. So I'm going to zoom in on this a little bit so it's bigger. So this is our entry screen for the Test Development Center. The link will be different. I'm going to demo this in the live bank because I know there are items in here, but you'll be having access to the NSAA OIW, and everyone will get that link, and that will be just for the online item writing system. You can see here there's an option to reset your password. So again, everyone will be getting the link if you just use this reset my password option. You can click it, and you'll put in your email, and then it will send you a password. First things first, in this system, you will notice this little green arrow here with the little door for return. That is the Test Development Center's back arrow. So when navigating the system, you always want to use the back arrow here in the system, not your browser's back arrow. The system can get a little crabby and may error out if you use your browser's back arrow. I use this system in Chrome. It works well in Chrome. It doesn't work so hot in Internet Explorer. It's pretty good in Firefox, not great in Safari. So If you have Chrome, that is the browser that I recommend using for this system. So we're going to go ahead and log in. Of course, that's the wrong password. And I'm going to pause my screen so you all cannot see me type in my password because that's a security issue. When you log into the Test Development Center, I would recommend, for a security reason, do not ask your browser to remember the password. We don't have any rules or guidelines really against it, but it would just be my recommendation to avoid doing that. If you ever lose your password or can't remember it, you can feel free to contact me and I can reset it for you, and it'll send a randomly generated one to your email. I'm going to resume my screen sharing. I should be able to log in now. So there's an old password. I just set myself a new one so I can show you guys the password screen, what it comes up as. So you'll paste, it'll automatically put your old one in here, and then you'll enter your new one and then retype it, and you have to click change password. If you hit enter, like I've done many, many times, it will just refresh the screen, and it's annoying. So I've entered my password, I click change password, and you should be brought immediately to this bank. This two-factor authentication will not show for you, I believe. And then it'll say what bank is it, and it should say NSAA OIW. If it says anything else other than NSAA OIW or NSAA, please let me know immediately. That would mean that you are writing your items into an incorrect bank. I've never had that happen, but I feel it's really important to put out there because that would be a tragic, tragic mistake. If you ever want to change your password, the option is here. It goes back to the screen. And again, your back arrow. In this main screen, something that's pretty interesting is the color scheme option. Everyone's first time in the system, you will get a tan, I guess, color that I think looks really gross. So if you think it looks really gross as well, come to this color scheme option and you can pick custom colors to make for your background and your accent. There are also templates on this side that you can choose from, and it will demo up there so you can see that looks like. And then our back arrow. You'll see the logout button is usually located on the top right of the corner. Again, if you're leaving your system at any time, you want to use this logout option. Now that we've got our color in place, we got our password, we've confirmed that it says NSAA, we're going to click this begin button. And I am going to make everything for this as easy as I can for everyone and make it so that only the areas where you need to go, you will have access to. So this system admin button and test development, stuff like that will be grayed out. You couldn't even click on it if you wanted to. The only thing that will be available to you to click on and where you want to go is item development. And then it'll be brought to the item development screen. And then in this screen, you're going to want to go to Create Edit. So Create Edit will be the option for editing and creating your items. So the first time you log in, you should see this blank screen, or as I call the item dashboard screen. So again, here's your logout, here's your back arrow, and this number at the top left is your unique item bank number. So everyone, even if you're entering items into the system at the same time, all of your items will have a unique number. Items should start off as draft status, so you're automatically in draft. Items can stay in draft as long as you want. So draft indicates to me that you are working on your item. When you are ready to submit it to the committee for review during the review webinars, you will set it to ready for review status, and you can do that by clicking this little arrow here, and you will have two options available for you, and that will be draft and ready for review. Ready for review is there. There are two ways that you can get your items into the system. You can type directly in, or you can copy and paste from a Word document. I highly recommend copying and pasting from a Word document. So getting your items kind of formulated first or hashed out first, and then copy and pasting into the system. This, again, because the system does time you out after a period of inactivity, and if you don't know if you're timed out and you paste your item, or type your item in, and then hit the load button or the save button and you've timed out, the system will just go and kick you out and you will have lost all of your work. So one, it's always good to have a backup. Two, it's easier to copy and paste into the system. And when you get your item in there and you're saved and you're confident everything is in there, you want to permanently delete that Word document. Please do not keep copies of any item content. So if you are pasting in, you're going to want to use this Edit Items Parts option to the left there, and it will pop up in a little pop-up window. If this window happens to open up full screen, it's a bug that happens most often with Safari, but sometimes if you have a lot of things on, a lot of browsers open in Chrome, it could do it. But if it pops up full screen, it's never going to let you return and go back and save your item. So the best thing to do is just close out of your browser and go back into the system. So in this option here, you see a box for your stem, and then boxes for all of your options. What we want to do when paste in is click this HTML button. And you're going to want to click that on all of the boxes that you are pasting into. This makes sure that the system does not retain any hidden junk HTML for Word and really cleans your item. So you'll paste directly in here. The design is what you're using if you type in. If you're on the design option, you can see we get this toolbar. It has a whole bunch of cool stuff in it. Your subscript, superscript, symbols, the worst spell checker in the world is in there. You can put a table if you're doing lab values, all that good stuff. So click anywhere in the blue and it'll go away again. Click anywhere in the white on the design tab, which is the default, and it'll come back up. If you're on the HTML tab, it will not come up. When you're done putting your item in here or pasting it in, you want to see how it looks, you'll use return, and the item will populate in this window. I'm going to show it to you in the Edit Item Whole option, which is the type option. So again, Edit Item Parts, if you're pasting in, Edit Item Whole opens up similar, but you can see everything's all now kind of together. So I will type a demo question. You can see anywhere in the white. Our toolbar comes up, and we will do a demo question. Very difficult question. Very subjective in Florida. So here's our item. And again, this is how the return works. So when you're done with the way the item looks, you hit return. Now it'll populate in this window. And this window kind of shows us how the item will look in our computer-based testing system. So if any of the formatting is funky or any of that thing, that's why it highlights, because candidates who are taking the examination, it will highlight the option that they are on or mousing over. This function, that return function, does not save your item. Your item will not save until you hit this big green save button. It'll save and you'll get this lovely 90s graphic that says record updated. Back into the Edit Whole option. So again, all of your fonts, font attributes like bolding and superscript and all that stuff is in here. What also is in here is an image uploader or image manager on this left hand, the little mountains with the sun. If you own the rights to an image and you want to use it in an item, we absolutely support that. So you will use this to upload it. Click that. And it might take a moment to load. There it is. See the bustle's already in here. You'll use the uploading. And then you'll select from your computer, click upload. This is a basic uploader. There it goes. If you have any questions about uploading images, please let me know. and I will work with you on it. So once you have your item in, I always recommend hitting save, just to save the content before adding all of the details about your item. So the first detail you're going to want to tell me is the key or your answer. So again, that's a drop-down menu. You select it. Again, your status, draft if you are still working on it, and then ready for review if you're done. Next is your reference. So you can, if you're finding yourself using a reference often, you can email it to me and I can add it to the library, and it'll add it to like a drop-down menu, so you just have to click it. This one will be in there, the Thompson book, but that's the only one that I was given, so it's the only one that's in there currently. So if you're using that reference, you can just click it. It will populate like so, and then you would just need to put the page, whatever that happens to be. The pages are very important. Also, the references, it helps when the group will be reviewing the items for inclusion into the actual item bank, so they can look up those items. So references, and you can also, of course, type right in here. Sweet. So either option is fine for inputting your references. Next are the domains. And you want to come down to, actually in the online item writing system, only the 2017 will populate, so you don't need to worry about which box it will be. It'll only be one box for the CSA 2017. So your major domains are included in the first dropdown. So we'll say this is equipment and technology for fun. It will refresh, and then you will click the next one down to the next level. All these other options you don't really need to worry about. They are not either test development related or not specific to this program. The only one you would want to use is rationale. So rationale would be for showing your work. So if there's math involved or calculations or something along those lines, you would want to put that in the rationale. Because we're not going to find a reference that says 2 plus 2 plus 2 is 6. You're going to want to show the work. I know that's, no one's going to show the work for that, but it's sort of my example. Author will automatically populate. You can see that's mine. You will not have an option to change that. You can't switch it to another author. When you're all set, hit save. So again, the most important things you need for your items are the item itself, your text and your options, indicate the key, indicate the status, indicate your reference, and choose your domains. There are 5 things. When you're done and you want to create a new item, you go up to this button here, Add New. It'll have a pop-up, so are you sure you want to? You'll click OK, and it will bring you to a brand new item, but it's blank, like how we started off here. You can use your previous next to navigate through your options. You will only have access to the items that you have authored. So if you use your navigations, you'll only be browsing through your own items. You won't see anyone else's, and no one else will see yours until we get to the review section. Also, if you know the exact item bank number that you were working on and want to jump right to it, you can go to your go-to, put in the item bank number, that's this number up at the left-hand corner, and then just click Go. So it's pretty straightforward with this system. Again, everyone will be working on their items in the online item writing system. The worst thing that could happen when you're working in it is something could happen and you don't save and you can lose your work. That's very, very awful thing to happen, but it's not the worst. It's not going to, no matter what you do in the system, you cannot break it. No matter what you do in the system, you cannot impact what is happening to actual live items. You cannot impact what's going on with an actual test. So we've separated out the work that you all will be doing with what is currently out there and being seen by candidates. So we do have some safety measures in place, so I don't want anyone to worry about hitting a wrong button and breaking the system or messing with the exam. That cannot happen. If there are any questions, again, please do not hesitate to contact me. Again, everyone should have my email. I know David has my email and my contact information. If anyone wants to take some time and go over any of this one-on-one with me in a webinar where you can ask questions and I can show you specific things about the Test Development Center or test question writing, I am available for that as well. I will be sending an email tomorrow, Wednesday, with everyone's information. And other than that, I think I am done. Thank you so much for viewing this presentation. And as always, do not hesitate to reach out to me if you need me. Thank you so much.